afternoon. Is everybody ready to have our minds and our souls taken care of? Because we're here because the Wellness Committee told me, we're doing a little bit too much medical. Can we take care of the soul and the mind and the heart? So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate your input. And thank you so much for coming. We all turn to Rachel for everything we need when things are going wrong or we need some extra support. But I don't know how much any of you know about her, so I have a little list here. That Rachel grew up in Houston, and her first job out of college was working in the Human Genome Project at Baylor College of Medicine, which is very impressive. I had no idea. She did that for 5 years. And then kind of missed the human contact. So she moved to Austin, got her master's degree in social work, and has a family, and has been at Westminster. She started here in 2007 when there was one building. So she's been here a while. But I'm gonna offer you, let me see which way it is, 2 truths and 1 lie about Rachel. And then you're going to vote what the lie is. Okay, so listen up. She loves the beach. She loves to waltz. And she loves spending time with her 2 sons and her 1 daughter. Okay, so the beach, the waltz, and her children. Yes. So 2 of those are true, and 1 of them's a lie. So I want you to raise your hand when I repeat the lie. Okay. She loves the beach. That's a lie, okay. She loves to waltz. And she loves spending time with her 2 sons and her daughter. Y'all are so off. She has 3 sons. The others are true.
That was tricky.
Yes. So now you know the important things you need to know about Rachel. So let's give her a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. I don't enjoy being trapped behind a podium, so I'm going to come up here and commune with you all while we talk about this topic. So we're going to talk about pillars of mental wellness. This is not the definitive pillars of mental wellness. This is just what I have seen that helps residents in my experience. So there could be other things that I don't mention that you think to yourself, that's really important to me. So we'll have time at the end. I'm going to leave some time for some questions. And if you want to comment anything that you think of that's a pillar of mental wellness that I've overlooked, we can talk about that at the end. Also want to let you all know that I am happy to be interrupted. So if you think about a question or something is confusing to you and you'd like to have clarification, or that question is, you need to ask it so you don't forget it later, that happens to me too. So feel free to just raise your hand and interrupt me if needed. Okay, with that, we'll get started. So today we're going to talk about, like I said, the 6 pillars of mental wellness that I think might be helpful for you. At the end, we're going to talk about some engagement opportunities that are here at Westminster in case there's things that you might not be aware of. And then we're going to talk about some avenues for professional support if you think you might need that. I realize now that I might not be able to hold all the things that I'm holding, so that's going to be a bit of a challenge. Maybe we're going to leave that there. So what is mental wellness? A calm and adaptive attitude that allows you to meet challenges and appreciate moments of joy. The ability to help yourself acknowledge difficulties while appreciating what is available and looking forward to what is to come. So there's 2 definitions here, because mental wellness is subjective, right? It's how we feel, it's what's going on inside of us. And so the point I wanted to make is just feeling calm and also feeling like you can be disturbed. Something can happen in your world that is stressful, and then you can come back to that sense of calm. You can be flexible and adaptive. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about mental wellness. I'm going to grow a third arm by the end of this presentation. Sure, that'd be great, Debbie, thank you. Okay, so what are some reasons why we might have challenges? So most of us, most of you, you've lived long lives. You've had a lot of experiences. You probably have a barometer of your internal feelings and when you feel sturdy and when you feel shaken. And some of the things that can cause us to feel less sturdy or feel like we might not be as mentally well as we would like to be are these. I put loss at the top because loss is inherent in a lot of things. Change in mobility, a new diagnosis, having to provide care for somebody, all of those things also involve loss. There's changes, there's things that have to be different than they were before. Those are things that can be stressful and can kind of throw you off balance. Of course, loss in a big way, losing somebody you love, a death, or a change in your physical ability to function can also be a stressor. So those are some of the things that can cause us challenges. So here we just have a little representation of what we're going to cover. So we're going to start at the top with attitude, and then we're going to work our way around these 6 hexagons we have here. So we can go to the next slide. So what is attitude? I've used the word attitude here. You could also say perspective. You could say, how you react. But what is our attitude? It's how we've been conditioned. So our childhoods, how we were raised, those first 3 years of your life are where you imprint most of how your brain circuitry is going to react and respond to challenges. And we don't even remember that usually. We don't have any recollection of it. So we're just carrying all that on board, doing our best, without even being aware usually of what that is. But our childhoods and then our relationships that we have after childhood, those are the things that inform our typical attitude or our baseline attitude, how we react to challenges and changes. And everybody has a capacity for change. So whatever has happened to us, whatever relationships we've had, however those have impacted us, we can always change that. You can go to the next slide. So here are some common attitudes that we might find ourselves falling into. It says, if you can't see it over here to the right, these things say catastrophizing, perfectionism, despair, denial, and black and white thinking. And then at the top of that it says these things are less helpful responses, but human. So we're all going to find ourselves in those situations from time to time. Something's going to happen in your life, and then you're going to immediately think, how could this get worse? Let me think of the 100 ways that this could be worse than it already is. A lot of us do that. We catastrophize. We say we don't take the problem for what it is. We aren't actually able to look at just what's in front of us. We start looking at what our brain is giving us to think about, how much worse it could get. And that's normal. Perfectionism, a lot of us are really hard on ourselves. We want to be perfect. We want to be perfect all the time. That's not attainable, but that's a pattern we often fall into. Despair and denial. When something big happens, when we have a big change in our lives, especially a loss of some kind, it is human and normal to feel despair, to feel like I'm not capable. I don't have what I need to cope with this, and so I'm going to just lay down and cry, and that's normal. And we do that for some period of time, but it's if we don't get back up that we're having too big of a challenge for us to manage. And then black and white thinking, I don't know about y'all, but this is my favorite. I love to get stuck in my head and say, well, it can't be fixed because it's this way, it's only one way or the other way. So a lot of us tend to do that, and that is also it stops us from seeing the other perspective and from being flexible, which is what we talked about in the beginning, helps us to be mentally well. So what might be more helpful in that situation? Having some awareness of our own responses, more realistic expectations, acknowledging our own progress or accomplishments. If we're perfectionists and we're mad at ourselves for not doing something a certain way, being able to look more balanced, in a more balanced way at what we have accomplished and celebrate ourselves for that can be really helpful. Embracing possibilities. Maybe this isn't One of my favorite ones is, when we are in despair, we're on the floor crying, and we say, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. I like to say, what if it works out? What if it all works out? What if there are other possibilities? And sometimes that's hard to get to, but that can help us. Self-compassion is a big part of mental wellness. If you can forgive yourself, acknowledge maybe your part in the situation or what you did that got you to where you are, but then forgive yourself for that and love yourself through that, that's going to help you to be more mentally well. Okay, we can move on now. Sorry, I got off on that one. This definition of the difference between shame and guilt, I like to just point this out because this helps us in our attitudes. If you can't see, I see some of you struggling to read it, I'll read it to you. But this was Brene Brown. Some of you may know who she is, but she kind of gave these definitions. Guilt is a focus on your behavior. I did something bad. Somebody made me upset. I got really angry. I said some things that I'm not proud of, and I can own that. I can say, I feel guilty about that. That's not how I want to conduct myself as a person, but that was a behavior. Versus shame is a focus on, I am bad. I am bad and wrong, and that's why I got angry, and that's self-blame. And when we fall into self-blame, it's very hard to find a way out of that keeps our mental wellness at the forefront. So if you find yourself saying, I am bad, I am wrong, see if you can reframe that to, the behavior wasn't great, or what happened wasn't great, but it's not me, it's the behavior. So just a little tidbit. Okay, we can move on. So as we already said, I said this already, but the most helpful attitude for mental wellness is a calm and confident attitude where we can make mistakes, those bad behaviors that we were talking about, acknowledge those mistakes, and take responsibility without it impacting our self-worth. And it requires self-compassion. And then I've said here there will be moments or maybe hours or days where we are neither calm nor confident. So that happens to us all. The goal is not to be composed all the time because then you would not be human. But the goal is to figure out how to get yourself back to that composure. If we can come back to the baseline, we can stay mentally well. And then I've put a John Kabat-Zinn quote there. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. So that's what we're trying to do. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but I just wanted to point out, what is the opposite of mental wellness. I don't know if we can say an opposite. I mean, we're all on a continuum here. But some things to be concerned about that would make us think perhaps this person is mentally ill and needs some professional support would be pulling away from people in usual activities, feeling numb or like nothing matters, feeling activated or anxious a lot of the time. If you're walking around all the time and you're feeling on pins and needles or nervous, there could be something going on if you can't get back to calm. Feeling helpless or hopeless, severe mood swings, or inability to complete just tasks of daily living if you're not getting up and getting dressed, if you're not taking care of yourself, or thinking of harming yourself or someone else. So if you've noticed any of these things in yourself, or you're talking to a friend and they're having any, or if it's especially several of these things that they're expressing to you, that's the time you want to link them to some professional support or somebody that can help them work through that. Okay, now we're going to move on from attitude to recognition and acceptance. That's the next part. So we talked about the attitudes we could have that might not be adaptive. We talked about some of the characteristics of what mental wellness is. So again, I'm giving you this brief presentation. So a lot of these things, acceptance is something I've been exploring for years. So we might just scratch the surface here, and it might be something you explore more deeply if you're interested in it. But how do we get from mental, even if we're not in mental illness, but how do we get from some of those attitudes that are unhelpful to a more helpful attitude? One of the avenues to bridge that gap is recognition and acceptance. Being aware of the situation, seeing it from other people's perspectives, acknowledging it for what it is, and recognizing that our own fears or failures or worries don't change anything. If you've ever been in a situation, I was actually sharing with Debbie right before this, a situation that many of you know that happened with my son. He got a concussion. A concussion is a fairly normal thing that happens to people. They heal. That's what happens, typically. But because that didn't heal, he didn't heal as quickly as I thought he should heal, I went in my mind to, well, his life is going to be forever altered, all these bad things are going to happen, he's never going to get better, and then I was not mentally well for that time period until I could get that under control. So that's just an example of how a situation might not, at its face, on the surface of the situation, it might not even be that big, but in your mind, you're making it into something that is insurmountable, that you're never going to be able to overcome. And that's where we often get stuck. So being able to take a step back from that and say, wait, what's really happening here? Maybe get perspectives from our friends or somebody we trust to help us see what the real situation is. And then I said here, you have to feel it to heal it. Y'all have probably all heard that before. That's a common thing in the mental health profession and social work, that if we do have emotions that come up for us, those emotions are okay. When my son was injured, I was scared. That's normal, to be afraid. But when we have those emotions come up, the best thing we can do for ourselves is allow them. Allow that to be there and say, I'm afraid right now, acknowledge it, and then try to just sit with that. Not, I'm afraid right now, let me think about the 35 other ways that this could get worse. That's going, that's latching on to that fear, but just letting the fear be there until it runs its course, and then we can come back to that baseline. So allowing those feelings is important. Okay, so we can go on to this. Then this one just says, for after all, the best thing one can do when it is raining is let it rain. Just let it happen. We can get through it. Okay, go on to the next one. So the next thing I want to talk to you about a little bit is gratitude. Again, we're talking about how do we get from a little bit scattered, not feeling as mentally well as we want to be, to wellness. Recognition and acceptance, another pathway to that is gratitude. If we're able to really, well, first of all, what is gratitude? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Let me ask you all, what is gratitude? Or what are you grateful for? Let's do that.
My family.
Your family, okay. Anybody else?
Thankful for some of the trials in my life that I am not like to go through.
You're thankful for your trials after the fact, yeah.
And my caregiver, I talked to you about it, and also understand my Asperger's or disabled.
Your caregiver, understanding yourself better. Yeah, those are good. Go ahead, Bree.
I'm so grateful that I live at Westminster. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah, great. So, anything else? Okay. So we can go to the next slide. I don't know that one was as good of an explanation as you all just gave. So what is gratitude? Everything that everyone just mentioned had something to do with connection. Somebody said caregiver, somebody said family, you said Westminster, the connection that we all have to each other. And typically when we're looking for gratitude, how do we find it? We don't find it by thinking, well, Rachel said I should be more grateful, so I guess I'm going to do that, We find it by looking for what we appreciate that we are connected to. That could be the sunset. That could be your favorite tree. It could be your favorite painting in the hallway or your best friend. But what connects us and what grounds us to the earth and to our relationships with each other, those are typically the things that inspire gratitude. And we also don't often, when we're thinking about gratitude, we don't often think about how good it feels when somebody expresses genuine gratitude to us. So you may be going through your life doing the normal things you do, and someone may really want to effervescently offer their appreciation. And a lot of us will say, oh, it was nothing. It was no big deal. Don't worry about it. And we need to, not need to, but it would be helpful to you and to the person expressing the gratitude if you could hold that gratitude. Because if we minimize it, we're minimizing that impact we had and we're missing that opportunity for connection. So when that person comes and says, I really appreciate you, you could say, I'm so glad. Thank you. I'm glad that you appreciate, or whatever feels genuine, that's making that connection. Because that's what gratitude helps us do. It helps us connect to each other and connect to the world around us. Right down here it says we can't force ourselves to be grateful. That's not possible, but we can look around and recognize what we might call blessings, what's around us that we appreciate.
Rachel, do you equate
Gratitude would be thankful.
Some people use the word thankful. Yeah, I mean, it can be the same
To me,
thing.
they're kind of connected.
Yeah, I think they are. I think that in research, often we've used the word gratitude, and that's what this slide is about. A research study where this Dr. Emmons, he had 3 groups of people. He encouraged the first group to write in their journal 5 things they were thankful for. I'm sorry if I'm in your way. 5 things that they were thankful for only weekly. Once a week, they wrote down 5 things they were thankful for. The second group, once a week, wrote down 5 things that were stressing them out, some things that were bothering them. The third group was instructed to just write down 5 things that you think of, anything, just neutral things. After they took those journals, did some research with those participants, they found that the people that expressed gratitude weekly felt more alert, alive, interested, and enthusiastic. So it actually changed how they were reacting to their lives just by once a week writing that down. And that's not because we all don't have things to be grateful for in our life. It's because they took those just few minutes to do that appreciation that we were just talking about, to take the time to say, I'm truly thankful for or grateful for, whatever that was. And the people who express authentic gratitude experience less. They also found the reverse. They experience less envy, anger, resentment, and regret. I just thought that was an interesting study. So now we're moving on to the next pillar, which is social engagement. So you all already have a leg up because you're here, not just here in this room, but here at Westminster. Where if you open your door, there's somebody to talk to. You know, we definitely have more social engagement here than you might otherwise. But there's lots of research that shows us that social engagement helps us live longer. It actually boosts your immune function, and it gives you faster recovery from illness and injury. There was a doctor, Steve Cole, who studied which genes are turned on or off in your cells in your body under different conditions. And he found that people that were lonely had a distinct pattern of gene expression that impacted negatively their immune function. So people that identified themselves as lonely had genes that actually got turned down where they didn't have as strong of an immune response. So that's just one little tidbit, but it kind of gives us some evidence of what we may already know from our own lives, that when we are connected and supported in a group of people that we feel belonging to, you know, we care for, that buoys us up, that makes us feel more mentally well and more sturdy and secure. So how can you stay connected? I'm sure all of you probably have ways, but a few ways are discovering new hobbies. If you try to learn something new, you might meet someone new who likes that thing, so that's a good way to do it. Spending time with your loved ones and friends, making new connections, or finding other people that are interested in what you're interested in. Those are different ways you can be connected. So the next one says, any other ideas? How do you all stay connected? Is social connection something you think about in your life? Do you prioritize it? Nobody wants to jump out there.
I do, because I'm always very grateful since I'm by myself again now. When someone calls and says, can you have dinner with us?
So you stay connected by accepting those dinner invitations, right? Yeah. Sometimes somebody might call and invite us to do something, or pass us in the hall and say, oh, we should get together for dinner sometime. And we go, yeah, okay. And we walk on, and we might not take them up on it. But taking them up on it, accepting it, that's a way to get connected. Ruth, what were you going to say?
I stay connected by the list that we get each week, and then I put a yellow marker for every day that I want to do this thing, and usually 4 or 5 yellow markers.
You're making a plan of what groups you want to join and how you're going to put yourself out there. Yeah. Anybody else? Marlene?
Learning and remembering names.
Names. Yeah, she said learning and remembering names. So that's something it's a challenge for me too. Remembering names. There's a lot of names here. There's a lot of people, so that's hard. But putting a focus on that is a great way to make that connection. Because if we do meet someone and we are able then to remember their name, we've got that jumping off point of making that connection. Yeah. So the next pillar we're going to talk about is routine. And I don't think this is something that we would commonly consider as part of, maybe it is for all of you, but it's something that I came to kind of late after I had worked here for a while. I started to understand the real importance of a routine. But maintaining our usual patterns, especially in challenging times, can help us to stay mentally well and balanced, to keep us on course. It provides that security, helps us feel normal, and it may give us the motivation we need to do the next thing that needs doing. If you've ever gone through, and I'm sure you all have, you've lived a long time, you've probably gone through a lot of difficult challenges. If you've been in a period of your life that felt unbearable, overwhelming, more than you could take, then you know that some days taking a shower felt like too much work. Maybe eating a meal felt like too much work. So if we're in a routine and we can stay in it and we can honor it, that can help get us back to feeling more like we can take on whatever's going on for us. And then if you want to go to the next slide, some of the benefits for a routine as well is, I know short-term memory loss or dementia, it's not a normal part of aging, but it is a part of aging that sometimes happens. And I know that a lot of people that live here get concerned about that for themselves, and so that's another reason I wanted to mention routine. And if we stay in a routine, and when I say routine, I'm not talking about, I should have said that, I'm not talking about like 8 o'clock, I wake up, 8:30, I get dressed, 8:45, I eat my oatmeal. It doesn't have to be a strict schedule, just a pattern of things that you do from day to day. I put the keys in the same place every day, I do get up around the same time, I get dressed around the same time, that sort of thing. And if you do start to have any memory loss, those routines can help you stay independent a lot longer than people that don't have routines, because we can rely on that routine to keep us in our pattern of taking care of ourselves. So it's important to have a routine in order to do that. Okay, and now we're on to our last pillar that I'm going to mention today, which is cognitive fitness. So part of mental wellness is brain health. Part of keeping our brains healthy is keeping them engaged and active. Coming to talks here, going to programs, doing all that, you all are doing that pretty frequently. But learning something new, or engaging in activities that keep your brain thinking in creative ways, like puzzle solving, listening to music, whatever hobbies you have, whatever it is you enjoy and love to do, doing that and then expanding your knowledge of that thing can really help you maintain your cognitive fitness. There's a term that scientists call cognitive reserve, and that can be created by engaging in those types of activities that I've just mentioned. And that cognitive reserve can help our brains to become more flexible. So our mental wellness can be benefited by that flexibility in our brains. And then the last part of, you can change the slide, please. The last part of cognitive fitness that I didn't know where to put this. Cognitive fitness, we could put meditation anywhere. We could put it under a lot of different categories, but I decided cognitive fitness was where to stick it. But meditation and mindfulness practices have a lot of health benefits. And there's a lot of interesting research that they're doing now about how meditation practices can benefit our cognitive wellness and our brain health. It's been studied in several clinical trials, and there's a lot of evidence that supports the effectiveness of meditation for stress reduction, anxiety relief, pain reduction, improving depression, insomnia, and high blood pressure, and improving your attention. And we were talking a little bit about memory a few minutes ago, and attention and focus, it can also help us improve our memory. We can't remember something that we never took in. So where we direct our attention and how we direct it can help us improve our memory as well. So if you haven't thought about meditation, I know many of you probably have thought about it a great deal and are practiced meditators, but those of you that haven't, it might be something to think about, to just consider. It can be really helpful. And then we're going to skip this. We'll go back to that again. And then I wanted to let y'all know what some engagement opportunities at Westminster were, in case we were talking about social engagement. It sounds like many of you have a full schedule already. But we do have a Fit Minds group that helps with brain cognition boosting activities. Obviously, we have that big activity calendar that Ruth makes for us with many, many fun things to do, so there's all of those things. Saying hello to your neighbor in the hall. You know, a lot of times when we pass by each other, we just say, hey, how are you? You know, we keep walking, so that's not, maybe you're in a hurry, that's fine. But if you feel like, you know, I'm feeling a little lonely today, I want to engage with somebody, when you pass that person in the hall, take that extra beat to look them in the eye and say, how are you today? And see if they engage with you, and that could benefit you both. Joining a new group, starting a hobby group, organizing a dinner or a coffee date, you know, you be the one that picks up the phone and makes the dinner plans. That can help too. So I wanted to let you know what our current groups are here at Westminster that have anything to do with mental wellness. So I've put together this little list. If you're caring for someone, we do have a care partner support group that meets twice a month. We have that Fit Minds group that meets every Thursday, 10:30 in the chapel, I mentioned that. We have a discussion group that meets Thursdays at 2:30. There's a new meditation or contemplative prayer group that's meeting on Wednesdays, every Wednesday morning except the first Wednesday of the month in the chapel at 10:30. So if you are interested in meditation and that's not anything you've ever done before, that would be a good way to try it out. We have a nonfiction book group and a short story group so that I facilitate. So I just wanted to draw your attention to those. And then we talked about at the beginning, I was going to let you know what professional help was available here. So we do have social work counseling, that's me. If anybody is struggling with something, and sometimes people think counseling means I'm going to have to come and I'm going to have to meet with this person for forever, you know, for 6 weeks or for a long time, and tell them all about my life, and I'm not interested in that level of commitment. And I just want you to know that my role here is to support you through any challenge, big or small. So if you do just have a day where you're feeling off and you want somebody to bounce that off of, I'm here for that too. So it doesn't have to be any commitment whatsoever. You can just let me know you need a little bit of help, and I'm here for that. We do also have a psychologist that comes to our building and meets with people individually if they need that type of counseling. And then, of course, Ann and Kathy, our nurse practitioners in the clinic. If you're not feeling well, you're feeling like you might be depressed or have some anxiety that you need some help with, maybe medication assistance, something like that, the nurse practitioners can help with that as well. And there's some references for where I got all those lovely studies that I told you about. Does anybody have, I was going to go back to this slide. I should have put that at the end. What other pillars of mental wellness? What helps you all stay mentally well? You're here you're like, I'm here to find out, Rachel, I don't know. But does anybody have things that they know that they do that are something that enriches them, that helps them stay balanced, that they want to share?
Stay busy.
Staying busy, Debbie said. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I think holding on to hope, or reminding myself that there is hope in every situation, and just to look for those avenues of hope.
Did everybody hear that? We've got another mic, so we'll, yeah. Okay.
For me, it's reminding myself that hope is always present in my life, and then to look for those avenues where I might encounter hope.
I had, Sunday, someone gave an expression that I thought was really helpful. If your happiness is being disrupted at this point, that happens, but you don't have to lose your joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm glad you said that. That's a good point. And oftentimes when I'm working with people, I tell them, look for moments of joy. We might not be happy, we might not even be content, but there might be a beautiful bird in the tree, or there might be a time where you took a deep breath and that felt really good. So those moments are really important. Yeah. Anybody else? Things that keep them?
I think I can speak for both Tom and I that physical contact is very important. We hold hands a lot, we hug a lot, and I have lots of hugs to give away if anybody needs one. I always get one back. So.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that definitely is important. Anybody else? Arlene over here. I'm going to give her mine.
I think just good humor and
appreciating it from others, you know, just once in a while, a good laugh, or it just spreads and helps people through a lot.
I have a habit of writing a journal, and most of the time when I write the journal, I think of gratitude. Who am I gratitude to? And that kind of gives you a feeling that how you are connected with the world and how you are dependent on the world.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions about anything that we've talked about today? Any questions about anything we haven't talked about today? No? Okay.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here, and not just for today, but if anyone hasn't worked with Rachel, the door is open. You know her face, you know she has 3 boys instead of 2 boys and a girl, and you can waltz into her office anytime and get her support. She is really, really wonderful, so let's give her a nice applause.